The court that tried Jungkook's abuse during his military service has reached a decision that has shocked many. After a series of trials full of tension and public attention, the judge finally read out the verdict against the abuser. What surprised many, however, was the suggestion that there is no prison sentence for the perpetrator, although the evidence strongly corroborated allegations of physical and psychological abuse by Jungkook. This decision led to a variety of speculation and controversy, both from fans, the general public, and those concerned with the reform of the system in the South Korean military. Most people consider that the verdict is a form of failure of the law to provide appropriate punishment to perpetrators of violence. Given that Jungkook's bullying was very serious and affected his mental well-being, many wondered why the perpetrator did not get a harsher punishment. Although judges have found the abuser guilty, the absence of a prison sentence raises many questions about South Korea's legal system. Many people feel that the verdict reflects the impartiality or even failure of the legal system in dealing with cases of abuse among soldiers, which were previously often covered up or perceived as part of harsh military life. This decision further exacerbated the public view that military law in South Korea prioritizes the protection of agencies or institutions over the welfare of individuals, even in cases that clearly involve physical and emotional violence. Given Jungkook's position as a global idol, many feel this decision also sends a bad signal to younger generations who may face similar situations in the future. Not only the judge's decision drew sharp criticism, but also the policy governing the conduct of military service itself. Some legal observers and social activists say that this decision reflects a failure in responding to the problem of bullying that has long been rampant among the South Korean military. Existing policies, despite efforts to create a more transparent reporting system, are not considered sufficient to minimize the violence that occurs in this very strict hierarchical system. Why is the offender not given a fair punishment? Does this mean that the military still continues to cover up the problem of violence on the grounds of tradition or obedience that must be maintained? Or is there pressure from certain parties who want the perpetrators not to be severely punished for fear of countering the deeply hierarchical culture in the South Korean military? For Jungkook himself, although the bullying he experienced has gained recognition in the courtroom, this decision certainly leaves a lot of disappointment. As a K-pop idol who is highly respected by fans around the world, is this what he should receive as a form of justice? Although his case shocked the entertainment world, in reality, he did not get results that matched the severity of the suffering he experienced. Many feel that this decision confirms a larger problem in South Korea's entertainment and military, that while K-pop idols have achieved great success and are respected globally, they remain vulnerable in the face of larger and more powerful systems, such as the military and bureaucracy. This is an example of how many celebrities and young soldiers may never get full justice even though they are in a very difficult and adverse situation. The judge's decision not to give a prison sentence for the bully has sparked strong criticism from various parties, especially legal observers and social activists who consider that the sentence given is too light given the huge impact caused by the act of violence. In fact, some feel that this decision is another example of how weak law enforcement is in South Korea, especially related to the issue of bullying, which is often considered a trivial matter or simply part of the maturation process of a soldier. Criticism flowed from various circles, ranging from Jungkook fans who felt disappointed with the decision, to the general public who felt that the perpetrators of bullying should be subjected to more severe punishment in order to provide a deterrent effect. Some human rights activists say the decision shows that South Korea's military is still unprepared to deal with the problem of rampant violence among its young soldiers. One growing speculation is whether this decision was influenced by pressure from certain parties, such as the military or even the South Korean government, who may be worried about the repercussions if the abuser is sentenced to prison. Given the tight hierarchy of the South Korean military, it is suspected that this decision was made with consideration so as not to damage the image of the military that has been built so far. Could there be any interest behind this judge's decision? Given how military cultures often protect each other, some believe that this decision has more to do with maintaining the stability of the military system itself than delivering the justice that Jungkook should have received as a victim. This adds to concerns that despite the reform policies announced by the South Korean government, the reality is that the existing system is still unable to deal with the problem of violence in a fair and firm way. The judge's decision reinforces skepticism about the ability of South Korea's legal system to deal with the problem of bullying in the military. Although the government has announced measures to tackle violence in the armed forces, many feel that this is only a symbolic step that will not change things. Some even argue that bullying in the military is a bigger structural problem and requires more in-depth reform, not just policy improvements. With this decision, many are wondering, will we see real changes in the way the military deals with bullying? Or will this just be a constantly pent-up and insoluble problem, waiting to explode again in the future? Ultimately, the judge's decision in Jungkook's bullying case raises many questions about justice and the legal system in South Korea. In the absence of prison sentences for perpetrators, many feel that the fight for true justice for victims of violence, be it in the entertainment world or the military, is far from over. The judge's decision not to give Jungkook a prison sentence has added to tensions amid increasingly violent public protests. Many are beginning to question whether there is something bigger lurking behind this decision. Is this simply a failure of the legal system, or is this part of a larger agenda that has to do with the image of the military, the entertainment industry, and the power of certain parties in control? One of the big questions that arises is whether this decision reflects the great powers trying to protect the parties involved, especially within a military sphere known for its strict hierarchy. Some speculated that this decision was part of an effort to avoid a greater negative impact on the already stressful military institution. After all, many felt that a verdict without a prison sentence actually gave the impression that bullying of servicemen and celebrities was not taken seriously enough by the courts. For many, this decision only further worsens the view of the legal system in South Korea, which, in their opinion, cannot be fair when dealing with a very powerful and influential military institution in the country. Given that the bullying that occurs among soldiers is often perceived as part of the maturation process and not as an act of violence worthy of punishment, this decision of the judge only aggravates this problem. Critics of the law even allege that this decision is a reflection of the impartiality and weak enforcement of the law in South Korea, which allows the perpetrators of bullying to escape the punishment they actually deserve. Many feel that these sentences without prison sentences only show that in South Korea's legal system, victims often don't get the justice they deserve, while violent offenders get a huge defense point. One of the more controversial allegations is whether the judge's decision was influenced by pressure from the military or the South Korean government. The military, as a highly respected institution in the country, often receives special treatment in cases involving servicemen. In this case, it is possible that the authorities felt that severely punishing the perpetrators could damage the image of the South Korean military, especially in the eyes of the international public. In fact, some people believe that this judge's decision is not only about justice in this case, but also has to do with broader interests, including maintaining the honor of military institutions and protecting the country's good name in the eyes of the world. Although Jungkook was the victim in this case, for many, the well-being of the military institution was more important than the well-being of the individual, let alone a soldier who was also a celebrity. New measures announced by the South Korean government regarding the handling of bullying in the military, which include providing incentives to whistleblowers and a more transparent reporting system, began to question its credibility after this decision. Many feel that the policy is just a charade that will not change the substance of the deeper problems. While the government is trying to show that it is serious about tackling violence among soldiers, the judge's decision not to sentence abusers to prison shows that it is not ready to tackle a culture of violence that has existed for a long time. In the eyes of many, these reform measures are more symbolic and will not address the root causes of violence, both physical and mental. In the military point, one of the reasons why this decision is so controversial is the belief that the culture of bullying in the South Korean military is rooted in tradition, and that it is often considered part of a soldier's character building.